Meeting is called to order. We'll need a roll call to determine if we've got a quorum. Darcy, you want to do that?
We'll do Miller.
Yep.
Napoli.
Here.
Jarvis.
Yep.
Copperall.
Here.
Wilson.
Here.
Cairns. Here. We have quorum. Actually, but this is a joint meeting as well, so we have the Township of Richland here. Schmitz. Here. Karen Palmer.
Here.
Kelly Bradford.
Here.
We have quorum.
Thank you. Okay, was this meeting properly noticed?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the last meeting. So groups had a moment to review those. Entertain a motion to approve. As you make a note that we also have Mr. Jelenic in attention.
Yep.
In attendance.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from January 22nd.
Motion from Ms. Tepley. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second from Mr. Wilson. Any discussion of the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of approval, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Minutes approved. Discussion and action items. Item 2, consider petition for annexation from Tri-Elite Holdings LLC for tax parcel 022-2623-2000. I'll just start here. We've got the landowners here tonight. I don't know everybody that's here, I don't think. I don't know if there's any neighbors as well, but I know we've got the landowners here. Any of you, Studleys, Tony, have a statement you'd like to make, any comments at all?
No, if there's any questions, definitely field them, but I don't really have any.
Okay, Paul or Joe? Okay. Okay. Any questions at all from anyone who's in attendance? Okay, questions or comments from the members of the Plan Commission? Okay, Matt, yeah?
I guess my only question is, I didn't see it in here, and maybe this really isn't any of my business or anybody else's business, but I guess what is the thought or the reasoning behind switching now?
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
The thought is what we went through last year with an entity that was very, very close. We had a signed letter of intent, and to come to find out, in the process, we did not have our ducks in a row, but from a economic development part of it, and also as the property owners, we needed to have it potentially in the city of Richland, so
Okay.
it would benefit, you know.
Gotcha.
And get maybe the entity would benefit from that. So we were trying to get ahead of that because we know different entities have different timelines and timetables and milestones that they need to hit. So that's why we want to get in front of it. So it really slowed down the process, and we, in retrospect, that was probably our Achilles heel that prevented us from getting that done.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you
I
both.
do have one question.
Sure, go ahead.
Is there any benefit to doing the whole parcel versus just the acres that we're talking?
It's basically the same answer Tony just gave. It would just be, it doesn't force anything at all, really. It just gives you the opportunity to have one less hurdle in the way if the time ever came when there was a desire to develop or an offer to purchase or anything, if it ever did. This kind of takes that step out of the way so that you don't get slowed down if that ever happens. It's kind of the point.
So if someone wanted, I'll give you an example. So if someone wanted 5 acres and you annexed 4, you would have to go through the same process and the same timeline to annex an additional acre.
You would, and then you'd have to, it'd be parcel splits and things like that, just additional steps in the process at the time. And so basically the idea is to not have that to worry about when and if. Mr. Williams, did you have anything to add on this?
Nope.
Casey?
All in all, we're good. Like you said, the petition was submitted to us on December 9th, 2024. All the notices went out in the mail, 2 postings in the Observer, and we did also send out notification to the school district and to the township clerk as required. Those were all sent out, no responses back, no issues, I haven't heard any, so we're good.
Okay, just so everybody's clear on the process tonight, this body does not approve the annexation, that would be the city council. The purpose of this tonight for the plan commission is to review, make sure things are done correctly, procedurally and so forth, and then choose whether or not to recommend to the city council approval of the annexation, and that would be then on the council agenda, which I believe is next Tuesday night, a meeting that starts at 6:30. Anybody up here with any other questions? ETZ, township folks, questions? Does anyone? Okay. Well, if there are no other comments or questions, then at this point, I entertain a motion to recommend to the city council approval.
We got a question
I think
back
there's a
here.
question back.
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
You guys have a question?
Yeah, I just wanna make it known that when that contract was brought up back in 1953,
Yeah,
that once the land was done operating as an outdoor theater,
yeah,
the land reverts back to me.
yeah.
So I just wanna make that known.
Yeah, that's, nothing has changed there at all.
No, I didn't realize that, I just wanted everybody to know it, so that's the way the contract was written up. And my dad and Sarah Eskin drew up the contract, or my dad did, I guess. So the land would revert back to me.
Yeah, and it's, I believe the stipulation is, as it is, it needs to remain an outdoor movie theater.
Right.
Yeah, and so, in other words, if an opportunity came, it would be up to you folks to agree whether or not to do that.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. Any questions there, right, Tony?
No.
Yeah. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned it, so.
Yep.
So if that were to happen, does that affect that it's annexed or not?
No,
No,
it's just whether or not they would proceed with any particular opportunity to develop or sell or any of that at the time, because they would have to agree. That's really between them.
yeah, it's
Not really
landowner.
ours to do.
That's,
To revert back to another,
No.
no, that doesn't matter.
Oh, I understand, sorry. No, it would not.
Okay, that's what I was
Okay. Hearing no other questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion for the plan commission to recommend the city council approval of annexation for tax parcel 022-2623-2000 from Tri-Elite Holdings LLC.
I'll make that motion.
Motion for Mr. Wilson, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Miller. Any discussion? Okay, let's do a roll call on that.
Miller,
Yep.
Copley,
Aye.
Jarvis,
Aye.
Coppernoll,
Aye.
Jelenic,
Aye.
Wilson,
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Okay, that's that for tonight. Now, again, this will be on the council agenda for Tuesday night, okay? And Tony, I believe you're gonna meet with me after this meeting tonight?
Yes.
Okay, if the Studleys would like to join us, you're certainly welcome to do that. Okay, next, item 3 is adjournment. Yeah.
Should we have to do anything with the ETZ, or is that already done?
In this case, so this is for the plan commission to recommend or not, according to Attorney Wendell. I mean, this is here, they're here, so that if they had any questions or concerns, they could be heard.
We haven't voted yet.
haven't voted.
But that's the,
I can-
the vote has to
Hold
pass
on,
the
hold
ETZ
on,
board before it goes.
Hold on.
So with town board approval, with this annexation being unanimous, the town board has no statutory rule in the annexation process. So it's all up to the city to approve.
Isn't this supposed to, isn't?
Why are we here?
This is a ETZ meeting, correct?
This is, so it's an informational meeting. So this is actually just came about doing research. This
Is that in the ETZ ordinance?
Correct. This is actually a state statute.
Is it in the ETZ ordinance?
That's not in the ETZ.
What does the ETZ ordinance say that is
Nothing.
the joint ETZ?
So the joint ETZ will have rezone and conditional use permits for, you guys will be able to vote on those.
So you invited us to a meeting for,
Informational.
But that, I have a question,
Thank you.
I have a question based on that while Mr. Palmer's still here, because you brought up last time, when it does go to vote, that it should be a 3-3. So do we need to establish before we get to a vote, we know what their 3 are?
Yeah, we
Do
have,
we
we
establish who are?
already have that
We do,
established.
okay, I
Yep.
just had not heard that we'd had actually established.
You're on it.
Oh, I am.
That's supposed to tell you.
While we're talking procedures, when when
Okay.
the vote is 3 nay, 3 yay,
Yeah.
then it doesn't pass the ETZ board and the issue's dead?
Well, that would be on rezones and conditional use permits.
Right. But that's what I'm asking, is that
Yeah.
the procedure?
Yep, correct.
Yes, we did.
Okay, then go ahead, if you have something to say, go ahead.
Okay.
No, I said,
Okay.
I guess our work here is done. We're good.
Okay. Okay. Okay, next on the agenda is adjournment of the ETZ board. We lost one. So, at this point, the ETZ board is adjourned unless you object to that. If you have anything else that you want to ask or answer, yes,
I
please.
just got a question, so if one person, the Johnsons, own this parcel, then how does, they own the parcel, so how does that help revert back to the Studley?
I'm sorry.
I'm not sure how,
So you're saying if,
like whose jurisdiction or how does this work? It's almost like you have two owners, in a sense.
You do. You have two potential interest holders. It's just like anything else that reverts title when there's a change. Highways are the same way. The highway stops to be a highway, the title reverts to the adjoining owners.
So
There's all kinds of school districts that have covenants on their properties that if property ceases to be used as a school or church or whatever, that it reverts back to the original owner. And the government doesn't have any say in that. It's just a private transaction between the property
Sure.
owners.
Okay, so, and you folks have no problem having your land annexed to the city? Okay, okay. I think my question, if you have a problem with that, would be, we have to discuss that more, I guess. But okay, that's,
Now
thank you.
again, to everybody involved, if you have questions, comments, concerns, this will be on the Tuesday on the council agenda.
Sure,
That's where actual approval of this will or will not take. This is just a recommendation from here.
sure. And your recommendation is to annex?
Mhm.
Okay,
And then that'll be done on Tuesday, and again, public comment can be had and all of that.
okay. Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
you bet. Okay, adjournment of the ETZ board unless either of you have anything else that you want to. Okay, welcome to stay with us if you want to, but the ETZ board then is adjourned. Okay, public hearing for the application of R&K Tire and Auto Services for a conditional use permit to allow an auto repair garage at 784 South Church Street, tax parcel ID 276-2100-7570. What do we have here, Matt?
okay, I don't see Kevin in here, or Ken in here today, so properties indicated, the subject property was operating as a auto repair, tire repair shop since 2011 without a conditional use permit. Once that was found out, I reached out to him on the notice of violation letter that is attached in your guys' packet, and he did come in and fill out the conditional use permit, and that's why we are here. So there was no violations besides he was operating without a conditional use permit.
How did that come to light?
That was because we're going through the city, so like the one right across the street, that Shamrock or
Yeah.
Guru that we had, you know, just
Yeah.
in kind of doing the processes there that was found.
So just a process of review of the
Yeah.
neighborhood?
Yep,
Okay, so they needed a permit. Do we know if they ever had one? Is it an expired one, or they were never asked to get one?
they've been in business since 2011 and not one record of conditional use permit.
Actually, that's been in business.
Well, longer than that.
Way
Just
Well, is it still
under
the same
this
guy?
name, maybe.
Oh,
Yeah, under R&K, I think it
Transfer.
started.
Transferred to Kevin,
Father and son.
and
Probably that's
before that it was
probably
Ron.
Oh, yeah, they've owned that for a
Ron
long,
had it.
long
Oh,
time.
man, forever.
So
I
that's
think he built
probably,
it.
that's probably the 2011 son to father and son.
I think so. That's when the name changed, I think.
Okay, so they've done everything you asked them to do, Matt?
Yep,
Okay, and they don't intend to change anything with how they're conducting business on the property?
nope,
And you have no problems with how they're conducting business on the property?
nope.
Okay, so this is then the public hearing for their application at R&K Tire and Auto for a conditional use permit to allow an auto repair garage at their address on Church Street where it's been for years and years. Does any member of the public have any question or comment on this application?
I do.
Yes, sir?
Could you tell me how it works? The timeline, Is it the business's responsibility to know when their permit comes up? Does the city issue? Who's at fault here?
Well, the question, I don't know.
Because it sounds like they're being, penalized.
No, they're just being told to get a permit,
Yeah.
so they're in compliance.
So who dropped the ball?
I don't know, because he just told you this goes back to at least 2011. I wasn't around here then, and I don't know if
I
anybody.
wasn't either.
So at this point right now, the zoning administrator is Matt.
Yes.
So he's the one.
We're getting everybody into compliance. So when a property is not in compliance, that's my job to go and make sure that
It's a good
the ordinance is
question.
being followed, but yeah.
It's a
How
good
long
question.
is a permit good for?
Depends on what we pass. Is this one gonna be a 1 year? or
It's
what?
gonna be a 1 year, but, for renewal, we haven't come up with a fee yet, if there's even gonna be one. If there's violations in that year, we have the ability to revoke the conditional use permit. There are citations and other avenues we can pursue, but, after a year, obviously, these guys have been very good at keeping their stuff cleaned up and organized and in compliance with our ordinance. So after the year, we'll probably have it permanent, but at that time, we'll discuss that, I guess.
Okay, so what's really happened here is we put in a full-time zoning administrator. When I became mayor, there was a part-time zoning administrator. And prior to him, they had the city clerk handling zoning, which she worked her butt off and did the best she could, but that shouldn't happen, that's not about her. That's two very different disciplines in one office and not enough hours in each. So they went with a part-time replacement there, and when he retired, we have a full-time, and so what Matt's been doing, and I don't think anybody's upset with anybody at R&K, but he found this. They just had never done a conditional use permit. Whose fault that is, I don't know, because it goes back years. And so what we're just doing here is telling them, hey, you need to have this permit, and they just filled out the application and we're here to approve it. Okay,
Question
Yep.
or follow up on that.
Yep.
To the gentleman's point, so if this conditional use permit is not transferable, and let's say Mr. Burns decides to sell, new party comes in and just would expect that he can run a repair shop there, but he can't. So are these documents recorded? How would the new
These are
owner
recorded.
know?
We've got records that go back years and years on people pulling permits.
Okay, so it is recorded, so if a sale should happen, that information should be attached to something that would know?
It's up to the owner of the property to make sure all permits are pulled. So if you're building a fence, it's your responsibility to call, if you're operating or you have questions about operation, that's your responsibility as a business owner to make sure you have all your permits.
If you would know that, you'd have to have a permit.
Yeah.
It's already operating as a gas, or as a repair. So I'm just, yeah.
And
so
that's why right now, the auto repair shop should not be a conditional use in the zone, but it is. That's an old ordinance, we have to follow it. You don't follow it, there's no reason to have an ordinance.
to Karen, to your point, that's why Matt is doing the reviews that he's doing, so that we can flag, for instance, we know this business is here, we know it needs a conditional use permit to be there. So if it comes through as a real estate transfer, we can, oh, wait a minute, let them know. Which is what happened essentially. It's a little bit less different, but it's sort of how we ended up with the situation with the pharmacy and the hospital. And the same thing had happened there. The prior proprietor was never informed that he needed a conditional use permit.
And so
That's my point.
Yeah.
So how is that
That's,
information transferred? Is it through,
So the other thing too, we have that car wash coming up, conditional use for that car wash that was just transferred in sale to another owner. And that'll be the same thing. The realtor actually called to ask me if it was a conditional use or not. So he was under the understanding that as soon as he bought that, he would need to have a permit.
So could that almost be the thing, if this hasn't been done in 20 years, 15, 20 years, and then the real estate agents aren't also aware of this, if it becomes a common, you need a permit, hey, when you do a transfer, you have to do this. Because like for any of my businesses and things like that, you are required to know you have to contact the state, nothing transfers. So I think if Matt keeps doing a good job, it'll become a known, hey, what do I need from the city?
And that's what we're working to do on this, and that's why these things come up now.
Yep.
Exactly right, because as I explained, in just the way things were done before, it's been, I don't know how long since before you. I mean, Melinda did everything she could do with zoning, but she was doing that while she was the clerk treasurer too. And then Bill came in.
It was here when Jude just started over there.
Did you do zoning too?
I want to say Melinda said 1988.
And that again was the clerk treasurer doing zoning. So an individual that focuses on zoning, she just went back to the early 80s. I'm sure it was probably done with an eye on the budget. Rod, do you know that? Go ahead, sir.
Getting back to the facility,
Yeah.
I believe Orville Frode and his wife built that station and operated it for a couple of years and then sold it to Ron Burns. It goes back before there were probably any conditional use permits.
That's a great point. I remember that spur station. Joe, you must remember that spur station being down there on, by the, that, I remember it back to the early 70s, and I'm sure it was there a long time before that.
I think when Ron Burns bought it, it became a situation where he didn't want to pump gas anymore.
Right.
Due to the restrictions and everything, so we just pulled the tanks out.
And obviously, you'll remember Bill's Mobile was right next door.
Right.
There was another gas station on a lot that doesn't have a gas. So this has been done in that neighborhood, and TKS is still there too. So there were 3 gas stations right there. To answer everybody's question, though, the point is we're trying to clean this up now. And it needs to be done, or as Matt just said, the ordinance is useless if we don't use it. Just to try to make sure everybody's in compliance, and nobody was mad at anybody here. It was just, hey guys, this is missing, and they said, okay, what do we do? Came down, filled out the forms, and we're here tonight. So from the room, I'm gathering that nobody has a reason or an objection to pursue proceeding, and with this business that's been there for years and years, to have a conditional use permit to do exactly what they're already doing. Any other comments? Second request, I'm legally required to ask 3 times. Second request, any members of the public with any comments or questions regarding the application of R&K Tire and Auto Services for conditional use permit to allow an auto repair garage at 784 South Church Street, tax parcel ID 276-2100-7570. Okay, last time, any members of the public with anything they want to say or ask in the public hearing for the application of R&K Tire and Auto Services for their conditional use permit? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion now to close the public hearing for the application of R&K Tire and Auto Services for their conditional use permit.
So moved.
Now the motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, that's done. Now, next on the agenda is to consider the application, and I'm just going to make this.
I'm sorry, Mayor, do we not have to make the motion?
That is,
Is that
item
next?
5? Yeah, understood,
Sorry,
Richard,
sorry.
that was just a public hearing. Item 5, my motion is to recommend to the city council that they approve the application of R&K Tire and Auto Services for their conditional use permit to allow an auto repair garage at 784 South Church Street, tax parcel ID 276-2100-7570. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Ms. Tepley. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll just do a roll call on this, please.
Miller,
Yep.
Tepley,
Aye.
Jarvis,
Aye.
Coppernoll,
Aye.
Jelinek,
Aye.
Wilson,
Aye.
Cairns,
Aye.
motion carried.
Okay, item 6, public hearing for the application of Southwest Rainbow Properties LLC for conditional use permit to allow a self-storage warehouse at 1850 Bowman Drive, tax parcel ID 276-2812-4500. Is there anyone here representing the property owner? I don't see.
I don't see
No.
Scott in there.
Tell us what's going on here, Matt.
So as you can see from the picture that I have up here, on the rear lot, there's storage units. They're not insulated, they're not temperature controlled. Scott's plan is to take the businesses that he has, doesn't have inside of his business, his office is there in this building down below. He said that it's really hard to keep tenants. So what he would like to do is to turn that into climate-controlled storage facilities,
The entire building?
the entire building.
Okay.
So those will have then office space,
Office space.
and he wants to do climate control.
Storage units, yeah.
Um, Okay,
Per our ordinance, it does need a conditional use permit for that.
okay, right, and that is down near the school, correct?
Yep, the school, actually, the school's right here,
Okay,
and then that would be, before that's Wedgewood, and then the apartments.
you're right, okay, so you've been obviously down there, and any issues at all? I can't think of one, but the fact that it's the location near the river, any of that, any
No.
issues with what he wants to do?
Nope.
Okay, I'm not aware of any either, but I just confirming with you.
Yep.
Okay, again, it's a public hearing, so if the public, any member of the public has a question or comment, we'll hear them. In the meantime, questions or comments from among the planning commission?
Does he already have a conditional use permit for all other storage units?
He's got.
I'm gonna have to look into that, I did not look for that, but since he's turning office space to storage, he had to apply for it.
Okay, did you, to follow up, is that because he's flipping a building?
Correct.
So does he need a conditional use?
Yes.
He does, for the other storage?
No, he needs one just for this one.
So he doesn't need a conditional use for what he currently has?
I never looked to see if he did apply for that back,
Okay,
I guess.
okay, just, that's a good
What is
question.
it zoned?
Commercial general.
To make it an office building.
What is it zoned right now?
Commercial general.
What does it need to be zoned for storage?
That I don't know.
Is that listed as a conditional use in our ordinance or something? Storage units are
Yeah,
listed as.
33, 407.04, and 33, self-storage warehouse or mini warehouses in which retail sales are not permitted.
So the reason he needs a conditional use isn't how it's zoned, it's because of the type of business he wants to put where it's zoned
So
that.
it's going from office space to storage.
Okay.
Doesn't that need to change of purpose?
Yeah,
I think,
since he's changing the use of it, does it change?
Well, that's what the
any of the
conditional
rules?
use permit is for, it's conditional use, so you're changing the use in your permit.
But since it's changing the use, does it change any of the building codes in it?
really?
As far as like, does it have to be sprinkled or anything like that?
When that gets to that point, that's all gonna have to be Wisconsin code.
Okay, so at this point,
He's just wanting to get this pushed through, then to apply for a building permit, because he can't apply for the building permit without this being approved.
so at this point, this is simply to allow the conditional use, and then any other, like building inspector, all of that comes after this.
Correct.
Yeah, so that if he's gotta make any changes to it, like
Right.
you just said, potential sprinklers, anything that you, I know you own a downtown business and you went through this when you opened. That is not what this is. This is just a permit to allow him to proceed with everything else he'll need to do.
Correct.
Is there a fence on that side of that building between that and the school parking lot?
According to that picture there is.
Is there really though?
I don't know.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it's that chain
It's not
link.
far from your house, right?
It's a short walk.
And the only reason I say that is because the school is gonna be demoing a lot of that, so I don't know if that fence is the school.
I was gonna
fence.
ask that, the school district intends, they've gotta do some construction on that school, correct?
Correct, and that parking lot's one of, they're doing all the parking lots, but that, like I said, I didn't know if that was still there, if that's the school fence. They may be starting to tear down to get their project underway.
Okay. So we don't have a reason, at least from the zoning administrator, we don't have a reason not to allow the conditional use permit in this location for what he wants to do. Okay. Second request, members of the public, any questions or comments regarding the application of Southwest Rainbow Properties LLC for conditional use permit to allow self-storage warehouse at 1850 Bowman Drive? Any other questions or comments from the planning commission? Okay, third and final request, any members of the public with questions or comments regarding the application of Southwest Rainbow Properties LLC for conditional use permit to allow a self-storage warehouse at 1850 Bowman Drive, tax parcel ID 276-2812-4500. Hearing none, I entertain a motion to close the public hearing for the application of Southwest Rainbow Properties LLC for their conditional use permit.
So moved.
Motion was that Karen?
Yes.
Ms. Templey, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Mr. Wilson. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of closing the public hearing, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, public hearing is closed. Item 7, consider the application of Southwest Rainbow Properties LLC for conditional use permit to allow self-storage warehouse at 1850 Bowman Drive, tax parcel ID 276-2812-4500. I'll make that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Is that Mr. Jelenic?
Yes.
Mr. Jelenic, is there discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call, please.
Miller, Templey,
Aye.
Jarvis,
Aye.
Coppernoll,
Aye.
Jalanick,
Aye.
Wilson,
Aye.
Cairns,
Aye.
motion carried.
Okay. Next on the agenda, comprehensive plan. For those who have not attended a plan commission meeting recently, this comprehensive plan was adopted 2 years ago now? Karen, do you think?
Yep.
It's a 10-year plan.
Before we go too far, can I ask a question, because we were just talking about all these different conditional use permits, and we approved 2 last month. Do we go back and look at some of these, especially these automotive shops, to see if they're still in compliance? Because a couple of them look a little fuzzy.
Would you mean like if there's a trailer and there's a car on top of the trailer on jack stands?
I'm thinking more like there's a car that's being held up by logs.
Yes.
Ooh, I haven't seen that
That
one.
seems, I don't know if that's our problem, or if that's a
That's
safety,
the
that's an
one that-
OSHA problem,
That's the one
or?
that will be here next week.
Okay, that seems like a horrible,
Which one?
horrible idea.
Where is it?
I think it's at safety 789 Sextonville Road we discussed last month.
Yeah.
I believe
Yeah.
the one that the council did not move forward with.
Correct.
Okay,
They did, that permit was not approved.
okay, good, I'm just,
Well, I just,
No, that's,
Okay.
that's why. That permit was not approved.
Todd, it just wasn't, there was no motion, no activity.
Hence, it was not approved.
It wasn't denied, there was no motion.
Okay, they don't have their permit because the council did
so
not
then what
approve
is the
it.
ramp, that
We
makes
can do this for 10 more minutes.
No, that's fine, Michael,
Okay, whatever.
reach out to
Okay,
Michael.
got it.
So I was just gonna say, if we send it, if we discuss these permits and they go on, what is the ramifications of, we didn't approve it, but they're still conducting business as such?
Mr. Williams, I believe then you involved Mr. Window and Mr. Jones. There you go.
Okay,
Then, okay.
all right, thank you.
Yep, good question. All right. Comprehensive plan, did anyone, what we do with this for the members of the public and intent is if there are updates to things that have been worked on or are being worked on with regards to that plan, this is kind of a chance to discuss them. Karen, did you have any for tonight?
I do, actually.
Yeah, go ahead.
So earlier this evening, the Historic Preservation Commission met, and there are a page full of items that the Historic Preservation Commission could be involved with. So I brought those forward to the commission so that we can take a look at them for the future and just making them aware. You know, there are several others on here, you know, involving tourism, or I think I brought up one the other at our last meeting, you know, for the police department having data on accidents and whatnot. So I guess I would just like to ask, and I don't know if this is something we have to do as a commission, but when we have items on here for, let's say, tourism or the library, should those be like printed out and given to those departments?
Sure.
I mean, this is like, say, 2 years old, so
Sure.
I think it's time that we do this.
No, I think that's great. Sure, why not?
So who is going to do that?
If we're going to give stuff from the comprehensive plan to the department heads, that would be the city administrator. Those people report to. So she can just distribute it to them, and we have them all here, as you know, for their department head meetings. Be a great time to do some of that too.
Okay, how is the administrator going to be made aware that we would like her to do that?
Do you like me to tell her?
Well, I don't know, if there's something more formal than just.
I mean, it's not, I mean, whatever we need, it's not that complex. We can just advise her to do that.
Well, while it's not complex, like I said, the plan is a couple years old and it hasn't been done yet. So I don't know what we need to do to move that forward to the department heads and to
I
others
just
that.
asked you, would you like me to ask Ashley to do that?
Sure.
That's all we have to do. She'll do it. I can send it out in an email, make sure she does that.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem. Anyone else on the comprehensive plan? Okay, next on the agenda, reports and updates, item 8, status of the redevelopment authority.
Okay, so we added, like, as per the request, last month, we've added the RDA update and the TIF district update for each meeting. So we put together in the packet a little background reading for you guys as well to kind of compare RDA versus CDA versus how the planning commission kind of is involved in all of that. So for the RDA update, the current project is determining whether it should be reformed, dissolved, or transitioned to a CDA. So we're currently evaluating the path forward and consulting with attorneys, Ehlers, and Biervicker, who's not listed on here, but we have been in discussion with them. We're also evaluating the impact of establishing a TID within the RDA's existing redevelopment zones. We've got considerations and concerns listed here for you guys. Next steps are to complete these evaluations and to determine whether we need to establish the RDA to support the redevelopment project and decide whether creating a TID is feasible and essential for the redevelopment within the RDA zone. So we aren't currently ready to take any formal action, but we do anticipate reformation of the ADA and the establishment of a TID once the development agreement is executed. And again, like I said, RDA and CDA overviews are included in your packet for a little reading for you guys. So if you have questions on that, I can try to answer them or get an answer and get back to you guys.
And I know Jason's out sick, but I know we've talked to Ehlers more than once about setting up a TIF, and I know in the past there already was a TIF here once in the past. I don't know when that was set up for sure without looking it back up. I know the redevelopment authority was created in '98, so the TIF was probably shortly following that. And I know that TIF retired 20 or 21?
I think 22.
22, okay. So can it be done? Well, likely can. Was once before. And I know Jason's been working with Ehlers on it. Do you know how far along they are on that?
We are still in the discussions with them and determining the feasibility. One of the big considerations at this point is the timing of the TID, so we really want to have whatever economic development initiatives in place and ready to go. We don't want to open a TID and then the bill takes 5 years and we aren't able to collect on that. So it's really detrimental that we have it all lined up prior to establishing the TID.
Right. Okay, so Jason continues to work with Ehlers. Are you involved in that with him?
Yes.
Excellent.
And Bierberger as well, so.
Yeah, okay. I know that Jason, Ashley, and I think you went with him to the recent meeting that Ehlers held. And I think that you folks were informed of some changes to some TIF laws. For instance, can't use blighted property to do residential anymore, which is what happened when the panorama was done.
Correct.
That sort of TIF couldn't be done today, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so down Orange Street, which approaches Highway 14, I would assume the intent would be mixed use to get commercial development on the highway. Okay, did you hear anything in that meeting about any changes they've made to the law on that?
No, so they're actually, it's kind of in an odd time where they're expecting more to trickle down regarding that. They didn't have anything past the most recent changes, but they're expecting more changes to factor in there. And Ehlers had told everyone at the conference that they were going to reach out to provide that material once they had heard from legislatures, but.
Yeah, and I know that what the state seems to be pushing is a combination of commercial and industrial to be what TIF is used for. So I'm sure we're going to hear that. But that's, again, why the highway seems like a pretty good spot to do it, as long as you said, we time it right so it doesn't burn 5 years before we get anything built. Okay, as for the RDA, it's kind of been hanging, as its future's kind of been hanging, because at this point they simply own one lot left, and the rest of that, what they had, has been developed. And so the question that we're trying to get a straight answer from these consultants we use is the right path forward to continue with the RDA, reestablish it with some different rules to it, different spin, or replace it with a different entity. And a decision has not been made yet because, as we just explained, some of these laws have been tinkered with, and there's still a little bit of question left as to what the path will be on Orange Street, apart from the fact that we want to develop it. So, do you have anything to add to that?
I do not.
Anybody have any questions for us? No?
Can you refresh my memory on the boundaries of this TID that they're looking at?
I don't think we've established, there are a few different projects.
Yeah, they haven't actually drawn, that's kind of what they're trying to figure out.
Okay, I thought we had it drawn up one time.
The general area is going to, if you just cruise down Orange Street, what you'll see, if you head toward the park, on the left side it's mostly built, and on the right side it's mostly not. So just speaking generally, that right side, and then we could look at maybe going, another block down to Jefferson Street area, or not. Just depending on what the recommendation is, to fit with where they put the laws now, so that we could get the development that we need to get without having an open TIF that does nothing.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, how far back do you go with the RDA? When did you start?
7 or 8 years.
Yeah, so you know that several properties were developed down there.
Yeah.
And some of them were because we had a TIF. Quick Trip didn't ask for it, they just bought the land, built the store. But you're aware that when the RDA was created, that it didn't just cover Orange Street, it branched to the side as well.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what we're looking at right now. With the properties now, with the laws now, what's the right thing to draw up and how to do that? Okay, any other comments on the RDA?
What's a timeline for when we'll know if we're keeping the RDA or get rid of the RDA?
So these actually, we really should have kind of flipped them, because it is really contingent on how we approach the TIF district creation, and whether or not the RDA is needed for some of those, some of their oversight uses that they have as like a tool to implement that. So I'm not positive. I can follow up on that and see if we have like a timeline kind of planned out. But right now, we're simply in the feasibility stages.
For the TID and the RDA?
For the TID, which will determine whether or not we are going to implement the RDA, or reinstate the RDA, or transition to a CDA.
Great, so that my main question is timeline on the TID, and that's what you don't have.
Correct. So the TID would be once we have a developer's agreement in place on the economic initiative that we're trying to move forward with.
So a reason to have a TIF, a project
Correct,
that would work within the TIF.
correct.
Okay.
Okay.
So I guess to the,
You can.
Doesn't that like attract economic development?
You can, and that's, Jason again being on set kind of doesn't help this conversation right now, but that's what he's working with those advisors on, when they think we should do that and which property should be in it and so forth. So that the council can decide what to do with the RDA. Yep.
so maybe, I guess the question I would have is the time frame when you have your boundaries drawn and is that something, first of all, is that something that we would do as a city? We would decide where the boundaries are?
I believe so, I
Or
think,
a general idea?
correct. I believe we work with the consultants to determine kind of the options and the pros and cons from going with each, and then present it to the joint review
Yes, to the
board.
joint review board
And the
with,
joint review board,
represented by the county, the school district, Southwest Tech, the city, and a citizen, to review what wants to be done. This, before one can be approved, the state has to look at it to make sure it's in compliance with, you know, their new laws, all of that. But what we would do, again, this is Becker and Eller's trying to give us advice on where they think we should do this and why. And then it's up to the elected officials here to agree or not. And then it has to, then the joint review board has to look at it, because those other entities are supported by the taxes as well. That would be property taxes that would be impacted in that development, any prospective development within the TIF district. And then it has to be reviewed by the state before it becomes an active TIF. The concern that I heard Darcy raise, yes, Ryan, you could create a TIF as fast as you could get one done and say, potential business owners, there's a TIF district open down here. The information or the advice that you get from these advisors is, you can do that, but remembering that a TIF is going to have a lifespan, and when the clock runs out, it's over. Their advice is usually to have a project at least close to starting before you launch it. Don't have to do that, but that's usually their advice.
So then, the second part of my question is, what is the time frame from when you decide to, you have your boundaries and whatnot, and you're talking about joint review boards and whatnot. Time frame on all of this, roughly?
so ideally, I would think that we would try to prepare it to get in front of the joint review board in the summer, because they meet, I believe, between July and August. But that's,
If we had a project for them to review,
we had a
we'd
project.
schedule a meeting and do it.
oh, okay.
Yeah. If we had something like this for them to look at, because otherwise you're just burning daylight. But again, the answer to every one of these questions is kind of being, that's why I wish Jason was here. It's not anybody's fault that he's not. Where are we with the work that Becker and others are doing? Do you know exactly that? But Jason does. That's kind of the thing. To get an idea, because all of these time frames, we need to know when they'll have a recommendation for us, or Jason will from them, whatever, and then we can put the rest of this in motion if the council decides they want to pursue it.
I do not.
Yeah, and I don't either, and we're just going to have to ask him that. But we will do that. Okay, well, item 9, we just tied right into, which is the status of a TIF district, which is for the Orange Street project. Now, Darcy, I know some of the details are Jason's to provide, but I also know that he is working with some of the same advisors on potential other areas that might be eligible, or where a TIF might be practical. The one I know of is up above Rainbow Drive, which is potential housing development. Has he said anything recently? I think the answer is going to be the same thing, that we're waiting for a recommendation here. But has he said anything recently on where that is? Or have you been in any of those meetings?
I have been, of course, the meeting that I'm referring to was prior to our last planning commission meeting. So it was the meeting we had with Ellers, and we discussed both the subdivision options, Orange Street development. So it's the same conversation, is the viability of doing any of those. So it hasn't gone any farther than that.
Okay. Okay, so kind of the general answer is going to not move. Where we're at here is, as far as I understand it, Ellers and Becker are essentially, this is where you can go, this is what the law says, all of that. But their question is, for what purpose? Like, when do you want to start and why do you do that? Or what are you going to get built in there? What do you think you're going to get built in there? I'll have to, or any of us, we can have Jason come to any meeting with us or put it on the next council agenda for Tuesday night to answer those questions, because they're great questions, they're really important, because all of this is kind of all in one place. And I don't know from Jason exactly where that is, other than they've been meeting and talking it through. Do you have anything further than what I just said?
Do not.
Okay. No more questions or comments on the RDA or the TIF, the future of a TIF district for the downtown was at the moment for Orange Street, since that's why we were talking about the RDA. Anything else for that? Okay, item 10, other reports, updates. Does anyone have anything else? Okay, future agenda items. Okay, set the next meeting date, fourth Wednesday of each month, so that's gonna make it Wednesday, the 26th of March, 5:30 p.m. Next on the agenda is adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Is there a second? Okay, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.